Mornings start and finish here. On radio, on TV, online. This is Paul Henry.
7 minutes. This is Paul Henry. 7 minutes away from 9. Here's a question for the women of the world. When a man slings his arm around your shoulder, are you A, chuffed, or B, offended? Actress Helen Mirren is firmly in the B camp. She spoke out against the public display of affection earlier this week, saying it was a form of ownership she absolutely hates. So is she right to be offended? Psychologist and body language expert Suzanne Masefield joins me now. Suzanne, good morning to you.
Good morning,
Thanks
Paul.
for joining us. So Helen Mirren is basically talking about the man who is standing there, either with his partner or some other woman, with his arm around them. So It's not really a caress as such. It's an arm around either the shoulder or around the waist.
So what are you asking me, if this is a possessive thing?
Is Helen Mirren right? I mean, should she be offended at this? She's looking at that and she's saying that this is a man saying, this is my woman, keep away.
I think it's really individual, to be honest. I mean, where you've got a very strong, powerful woman, it can very much feel like an ownership thing. And it depends on the man and the relationship that you've got. Sometimes it can be a protective thing, and some women like it. You'll see some pictures where you've got a very feminine woman, say Kim Kardashian, somebody like that. And she does these beautiful postures with her eyes, big lips. And she loves having the arm over the shoulder from KN, and he likes that, this ownership aspect of it. But for somebody like Helen Mirren, who is a very strong woman, that would seem very offensive. So it would really be for the man to read the signals.
But is it like, does a man even think that? Like, do you actually think, oh, I'm going to put my arm around that woman to show everybody that she's my woman? Don't you? Isn't it just something you do?
It's unconscious. Majority of the body language that we do is unconscious. And we're picking up these signals all of the time from people, mainly unconsciously. It's only when we feel offended by something that we even question it.
That we even talk about it.
Yeah.
So is Helen Mirren actually right? I mean, does this go back to sort of, I don't know, caveman days where you had to keep your woman close or someone would pop out of another cave and drag her off?
It's totally. All these things come back to the primate aspect. If you think about gorillas and monkeys and how they do things, they're tactile, but there's a hierarchical structure. So, yes, it goes right back to that.
Is Helen Mirren just being a sort of a feminist naysayer here? Because sometimes, you know, particularly with older people, if you see them out in the street, an older couple in the street, and you see them walking along like that or standing like that, and you think, that is so lovely.
Yeah. Well, for her, it's not appropriate. So it's really about, there isn't a right or a wrong here. I think...
Well, she keeps talking like this. No man will want to put her arm around her. So What are the signs? Because I know that you say that it's really important, particularly for men, to be able to read the signs. Some people are much more touchy-feely than others. How do you read signs?
Well, the first thing you want to think about is space. If you go towards someone and they start to back off a little bit or turn away from you, they're not going to want to have you touch them. They're not going to want to have you put their arm around you. And also handshake. If you're going to handshake with somebody, noticing whether it's a very gentle handshake, that's giving you an indication as to possibly the culture that they come from. A lot of the Chinese, particularly ladies, they only want a very gentle touch because they see a firm handshake, which us in the West see as something really positive, as aggressive. So it's very individual.
This raises an interesting question too, because it's not just individual, it is cultural too, isn't it, as you're saying now.
Yeah.
Now, for instance, you go to Europe, and let's talk about Italy. In Italy, the men are extraordinarily touchy-feely, and actually they're like, when they're born, that's just how they are. That is the culture, that's how they're brought up. And
they're very territorial. They do like ownership. My family, they're putting their arms around everybody. It's very much like a tribe. So it is cultural. If you think about the more Teutonic, colder type of areas that people come from, like Russia, Germany, they're less tactile. Also, the Chinese, they don't like public displays of affection, but they're quite happy to bump each other by accident because they're used to lots of people around them. So these things are really important nowadays because we're so multicultural to know what is appropriate. And it's really about reading the signals from someone.
Is it a shame that you even have to read signals, though? I mean, at the end of the day, if we were a bit more generous to each other and communicated a bit better,
Totally.
Could we not just say, look, that's just a bit inappropriate, I don't know you. If it's your partner and you don't know that this is happening, that the partner doesn't know that it's not wanted, then you're probably got the wrong partner.
trouble.
Aren't you? Really, if you can't
Yeah.
communicate that with a partner.
Yeah. And I mean, there's verbal communication and then there's body language communication, because we're giving off those messages all the time anyway. And body language is actually responsible for, it can be up to 80% of the messages we're sending and receiving. So we could be saying one
Because
thing.
it is quite primitive, isn't it? So before we
totally.
even had a spoken language, we were giving off all
Yep.
of these signals.
And we're still doing that. We haven't changed that at all. We do talk a lot more, but our body language is still really important.
It's fascinating stuff. And, one of the most important aspects to the conversation we're having is for people in the workplace, because this is where it becomes more important, because you are not going to, you have sort of, a perhaps boss-worker relationship.
Yeah.
And so there is a little bit of pressure coming from other areas as well. So people should be aware of these things. Suzanne, I thank you very much for joining us. I have to thank you, and I suppose I have to thank silly old Helen Mirren. Suzanne Masefield, body language expert. And that is it for the program today. Many thanks to our partners, AMP. Jim, Hilary, thank you.
Cheerio.
Do I touch you too much, Hilary?
No, you don't.
That's good. That's good. I don't think I touch you enough, do I? I'm going to start touching you more.
No, you touch me enough.
I am. No, I'm going to start. The Be Judy Dench. Have a brilliant day in paradise. We'll see you tomorrow morning at 6 o'clock. Take care.
I love you long after you go. Like a drum, baby, don't stop.